Sex scandals, lawsuits, and a chief who resigned.
And now, how does the department rebuild, and what does the community want to see happen?
We're departing from our normal news stories to bring you an honest, unscripted discussion. Wave News troubleshooter Natalia Martinez joins us with other local voices to talk about solutions and moving forward.
Well, we hear it all the time, rebuilding trust between LMPD and the community. And just when we thought we were turning a new leaf with a new chief, more scandals erupt. So what needs to happen now? And for that discussion, I bring in our guests, Tammy Hawkins, the city's Public Safety Committee Chair, Ms. Kimberly Moore, the CEO of Game Changers. It's a community violence prevention and support organization. Denise Bentley, former City Council member and LMPD Advisory Board President for the 2nd Division, and Felicia Newman from the Center for Justice and Policy Initiatives. So much has happened in the last few years at LMPD, right? So first of all, thank you for joining us.
I just want to be clear. I'm the CEO of Joshua Community Connectors. Game Changers is Christopher 2X.
Gotcha. Okay. So first I wanted to lay out the landscape of what's happened in just, the last few years. Of course, we've had, you saw there, 5 different chiefs, 6 if you're counting interim chief Paul Humphrey. We've had the Breonna Taylor incident, the subsequent protests, then number of scandals. There they are. We had Chief Steve Conrad, who was a longtime chief, and then Schroeder. We had Yvette Gentry, then Erica Shields from Atlanta, then Jackie Villaroel, and now Humphreys has taken over for now. We'll see whether he keeps that position. So during that time, we've seen also a rise in crime, right? There's been more distrust seemingly between the community and police. So first I wanted to ask you guys, and we could just go down the list. If you had your way tomorrow and you could pick 1 or 2 things that you would like to see LMPD implement right away, what would that be? You're up first.
Well, I would say better community policing, more involvement in the community, and more people joining the force. It's quite often that people have a lot to say, but they never have solutions. We need partners. We need people to jump on board. We need more officers that are community driven.
So you're saying an investment in trying to recruit more officers?
Correct.
What about you, Ms. Moore?
I would like to see more community policing. I'd like to see people out in the community working so the community can know who's in their district. Like in the 1st district where my office is, I know those officers, but the community doesn't know those officers. So they need to be getting out of their car, getting on the ground, interacting with people to build trust. People are not going to trust them if they're never talking to them.
Denise?
Yeah, I think it's important, Natalia, to say that history repeats itself. And so what we're seeing now is the same thing we saw in the late 90s, early 2000, when we had this crack cocaine hit our community. What's happening today is the same thing that happened 25 years ago with crack. It's just fentanyl. It's a different drug. We talk about community policing. I think community policing works. But before we can get to community policing, we have to have police. And before we can recruit the best and the brightest to be on the police department, we have to have adequate leadership. We didn't have that with Mayor Fisher. We didn't have it with that administration. I'm prayerful that we have it this time with Mayor Greenberg, and I have a lot of confidence in David James and the position he holds. But we can't recruit people to police and walk the beats and do the things the way we used to when they're dispersed in 15 different directions for carjackings and homicides and overdoses. So we have to get a healthy police department. And I'll say this, and I don't care if I get emails and texts, we have some bad police officers, but we have great police officers that care about this community. They just don't have a support system. And there's bad employees in every employment, whether it's the assembly line at Ford or a teacher in the classroom, there's bad ones. We need to reward the good ones. We need to weed out the bad ones. We need to hold the bad ones accountable and move forward. Then that happens on the Tammy Hawkins level, that happens at the voting poll level, that happens with the mayor's office.
Felicia, what do you think?
I wanted to make sure that you know that I work for the Louisville Urban League as well. That's our Center for Justice and Policy Initiative that I am the director for under the Urban League. I'm going to piggyback on what Denise said, and we need to weed out the bad ones. And if I had my wish, I always used to tell my clients, was a practicing lawyer for 17 years. If you had a wand, what could you do? If I had a wand, I would undo the police contract, and I would put stiffer accountability measures in there. I would put more transparency in there. You can't say on one side, what can we do? And then on the other side, the other hand, you're trying to make the accountability less. Mm-hmm. You've made the accountability less than it was before the previous contract. So I want the city to fight harder for the people, mm-hmm. and let the police fight for themselves. They have a great union, but the city needs to fight for the people.
So in this circumstance, a lot of the most current issues revolve around a group of majors, right? And when we talk about accountability, we have the head of internal investigations who is now being accused of sexual harassment himself. So under what context, or how do you think more accountability could be had when it's a department of graciously 1,000 officers who are supposed to watch each other? Is that real? Is that not real? Is it doable?
So I want to take you back 20-something years. Excuse me, Kim. We tried to pass civilian review and independent oversight of the police department 20 plus years ago under the old Board of Aldermen. And it was pushed back from the FOP because it would start holding people accountable, and it would give the citizens of this community an opportunity to voice their concerns and have some type of follow through. I know we have it now, but is it tough enough? I don't know. Is it strong enough? I don't know. But when the head person of law enforcement comes to the table with their own issues and their own past, it is very difficult for the ones that they're supposed to be leading to say, we don't have to play by the rules.
Okay, so you're saying more power then in the hands of, away from the department, and an advisory board type organization?
I think that we need accountability for the citizens, but more importantly, we need accountability for the police department. And you cannot have accountability if the chief person in charge comes to the table with issues themselves.
So I want to jump in and say that, with Paul Humphrey, I trust his leadership. I think that he will not play favorites, and I think that there will be transparency and accountability. And so in previous leadership, it's really hard for police officers to do their job if they don't trust who's leading them. And so Tammy will tell you it's all about sports and stuff. The team is only as good as the head coach.
That's right.
And so if the head coach ain't good, the team can't win. And so I think we have a lot of things to try to fix. And I think if anybody can fix it and lead us in a positive direction, it's Paul Humphrey. I've been part of an initiative with LMPD since 2004. So I've been around a long time. I've seen a lot.
So one of the criticisms, though, that I've heard from a lot of officers is that, they wanted somebody from the outside because LMPD has been it's the same group of players, it's the same group of officers for so long. But we then hired Erica Shields from Atlanta. Then came Jackie,
who left Atlanta when it was burning, when Rayshon Brooks got killed and they had burned down the McDonald's. And we bring her here in the middle of the Breonna Taylor protest, pouring salt in the wounds of the community that's already hurting. So
we spent hundreds of thousands of taxpayers' dollars to do these national searches to find a police chief that hasn't worked out the last 2 or 3 times. And we have a diamond in the rough in Paul Humphrey. And I didn't come here scripted to advocate for Paul, but I think that we need to give the local person who's paid their dues an opportunity to lead. What do we have to lose? If we don't give it to Paul,
well, it's a scary proposition to think about.
No, but it's not scary in the sense that we'll spend hundreds of thousands of dollars doing a secret national search that is no transparency whatsoever, which is what it's got us the last 2 times. So I think we need to try something different.
I think I'm sorry, Tammy. I think having someone in the ranks is good, but if the ranks don't trust each other or the head, because I think that we tend to forget that if someone comes forward, I'll give you the perfect example. Some of the officers that were involved in the Breonna Taylor case, there was rampant rumors about their conduct, rampant rumors about their conduct, but nothing was ever done. We need to empower officers, maybe with anonymity, to turn in the bad ones. They know who the bad ones are.
Absolutely.
They absolutely know who the bad ones are. And we need to give them the power to get rid of them.
For me, I am going to trust that Chief Humphrey will move the way he needs to move. He's been with the department for a very long time. He has huge shoes to fill. I'm hoping that he comes in bold, very bold. It's going to take someone bold to come in. He's going to have to be given the authority to make the changes that he needs to make, and not care whose toes that he steps on. When, Jackie came in, I'm not sure if she was giving all those tools. I would say that, let's go back to the Breonna Taylor, and I would say that the officer that threw the slushy gate, he should have been terminated.
Well, one of the issues that was the story that we broke was one of the officers that was involved in Slushygate, his suspension actually went down.
Yes.
It was originally from 30 days, then it was reduced by 10. And some of the people said that the reason why was because he had been untruthful, which is exactly the same thing that the chief, Jackie Villarroel, had been found to have been. And so she didn't want to be questioned about being untruthful if that case involving the officer in Slushygate had gone before the merit board and been questioned.
But I told you it starts at the top. And one of the things I want to piggyback on Felicia, she talks about having a way where officers can report other officers. Every day, the officers are on the news asking the community to tell us who shot Johnny or who.
Right.
And there's a code in the community, snitches, you bitches, and all this. But they don't want to tell on each other. So what makes them
they call me.
So what makes them think that, Miss Susie on 34th Street wants to tell on little Johnny when she saw him do something? If they can't trust themselves in the police department, why would the community
But
take
this
that
problem is so big. Felicia, you were a former prosecutor, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I've been to scenes where people have told me, I asked them for an interview and they say, no, I don't want to do an interview. You get in your car, you leave, I live here. So, can it realistically be mended? What is it going to take for, the community to say, hey, I know the department scandals, I know its problems, I know the history, a long embedded history, right? Are we dreaming?
I think for me, I feel like that
so much to talk about.
the examples, there has to be an example set. There has not been an example set. I think once the example is set, a bold example, that sets the tone, that this cannot happen any longer, I think that starts the process. It hasn't been done yet.
And I think we have to think about the fact that, everybody wants to kumbaya with the community. You have officers still on the force, and I have proof that they were involved in a whole lot of different stuff with the DOJ. So how can the community really come together when we have officers that are on the force who are in leadership at LMPD who have had problematic behavior? And nobody wants to talk about that. Like I've talked to a lot of officers in the last week, and with Paul Humphrey, I trust his judgment. A lot of people say, I'm cheerleading for him. I'm really not. I'm cheerleading for this community so we could get back together, so we could be whole. And we have to have somebody we trust. And I'll say this and be quiet. When you come to a national search, they did a national search with Shields. Then they put Jackie in place, but they hadn't did background checks, and then all this other stuff came up. So where was the search team really when we're looking at that? And so one of the things I really want to say, and I'll be quiet, is Paul Humphrey is under attack in his own community. And he's been a police officer for a long time. And I ain't scripted and I ain't cheerleading for him. But if we want this community to change, we're going to have to support him. And we're going to have to trust his judgment. Now, I get it. The community don't want to trust the police. I get that. I'm on the ground every day. But I think with him, we give him a chance, like Tammy said, and I think he's going to make bold moves. He's going to hold people accountable. You might even see some demotions.
Well, I think we have to wrap now, but I think we all know that the entire community is now watching, right?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you
Keep
all.
watching.
Thank you all so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
We will be right back.
We should have 30 minutes.
I know. Yeah.